Today's episode contains details of image-based abuse and intimate partner violence. If that raises any issues for you, you can join us again tomorrow or reach out for help at 1-800-RESPECT. That's 1-800-737-732. Good morning and welcome to the Daily Aus. It's Wednesday, the 25th of March. I'm Lucy Tassell.
I'm Emma Gillespie.
Today we're bringing you a story out of Germany. And unless you are particularly tapped into German culture, it's unlikely you will have heard of any of the people involved before. But we think it's worth bringing to you, even though it also includes distressing details, because this is a story that could have happened anywhere to anyone. And that's because it involves sexual AI deepfakes. In today's episode, we're going to unpack the deepfake scandal engulfing German media.
Lucy, you came into the office on Monday this week really eager to pitch this story, and we had a fascinating conversation with most of the office.
Yeah.
It's got so many layers and is such an interesting and important one. But how did this even come across your desk? Are you into German TV or something at the moment? Where did you find this?
No, I'm not into German TV. It was honestly kind of random. I was just on Reddit on the weekend and I was looking at the pop culture chat subreddit, and the top post on Saturday Australian time really caught my eye. And that's because it said, "This is a celebrity scandal from Germany that deserves international attention." So I was like, okay, what is it? And I click through and it's an article from the German publication Der Spiegel. And this poster who's posted it to Reddit said, "This is the digital version of Gisèle Pelicot."
Wow. Now, we talked about the case of Gisèle Pelicot pretty extensively on the podcast, on the Instagram feed, but for those who might be out of the loop or might not remember, can you give us a quick refresher on Gisèle Pelicot?
Yeah, so Gisèle Pelicot is a woman who was raped extensively by her now former husband Dominique and 50 other men that he had invited to rape her over the years. This was facilitated by the fact that her now ex-husband was drugging her basically every night and inviting people from online forums. Dominique Pelicot is now in prison, as are the 50 other men convicted of raping Gisèle Pelicot. The key thing to know about it for this story is that Gisèle Pelicot had a right to remain anonymous during Dominique's trial, but she waived that right. And she said that was because, quote, shame needs to change sides from victims to perpetrators of sexual violence. And that is something that inspired the woman at the center of the case we're talking about today.
Yeah, and that case really captured the global media sphere. It captured so much interest and attention, and Gisèle Pelicot herself really became this symbol of a shifting discourse. So let's get into the story you're telling us about today. It's not out of France as Gisèle's story. It's out of Germany.
Yeah.
Who are the people involved? What is the connection to sexual deepfakes?
So the two people involved are a former couple of TV presenters, actors, writers, directors, both of them many strings to their bow. So we have Colleen Fernandez and her now ex-husband, Christian Ullmann. So these two were married for 15 years. They got divorced in 2025. They worked together a lot as a couple. So Ullmann is known as a comedian. He had a very popular German TV show where Fernandez played his fictional ex-wife. They also did ads together. So there's an ad campaign of them advertising a German pharmacy chain where it's like the joke of the ad is that they're in bed together.
So a really recognizable couple in German media across film, TV, advertising.
Yeah.
And they were known as not just individual identities, but as their brand as a couple.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of, it's hard to find an exact comparison, but I guess like Hamish Blake and Zoe Foster Blake, where these two people both successful in their own right, but also marketable as a couple.
Yes, super famous as a couple and celebrated as a couple.
But then they get divorced.
Okay.
And now Fernandez is the subject of this major article in a very well-respected German publication, Der Spiegel. She's the cover story. Essentially, Fernandez tells this team of journalists she was informed a few years ago by a family member that she appeared to be in a porn video where she was depicted having sex with several men. This was about 5 years ago. So this is the very early stages of what we now know as deepfakes, which are fake images which appear to depict someone doing something they never actually did.
Yeah, I remember those earlier days of deepfakes, and we started to see this quite disturbing vision surface, which looked like celebrity faces superimposed on pre-existing footage or bodies from other pornographic content.
Yeah.
So that was the early iteration of what we now understand to be deepfakes.
Yeah.
Based on the fact that you're telling me about this story today and Colleen Fernandez, am I right in assuming that the video that her family member saw wasn't the only one?
It was not the only one. There have been many, many, many faked images and videos of this woman, Colleen Fernandez, and her lawyers tried to have them taken down unsuccessfully. So that's one aspect of this story. The other aspect of this story is that a couple of years later, after she was first alerted to those videos, she found out that there were fake accounts purporting to be her.
Right.
And she has made an Instagram post last week, in addition to the Der Spiegel article, where she got into some more details. And I think it's kind of the best way to explain it is in her words. She said a few years ago she was having lunch with a producer in the TV industry who she says, quote, brought up our conversation. So those quotes, that's her addition. And that's when she discovered there were these fake accounts purporting to be her online, conducting sexual relationships on her behalf with as many as 30 men.
Wow. So someone she actually knew had lunch with her and referenced a chat that he had had with her that had never happened because it was on a fake account.
Yeah. And so, as I've said, these people that were having these relationships with the fake accounts purporting to be her included her TV industry colleagues in Germany. Yeah. In her Instagram post, she said, quote, for years, fake profiles were created in my name, closely networked within my professional circle, and primarily contacted men. After initially normal conversations, things became more flirtatious. The person sent fake nude photos and sex videos of me designed to appear as if I had taken the photos myself and secretly filmed myself having sex. The conversation then usually moved to email addresses using my name. The person spoke to the men on the phone using a generated voice. Eventually, this progressed to phone sex. This entire scheme continued for over 10 years. During this time, I sent hundreds of men nude photos and sex videos of myself, my naked crotch, my naked body. People in the industry believed I was actually behind it.
So these must have been really sophisticated accounts, Lucy, because we come across fake Instagrams, particularly of celebrity profiles, every day online, but there are usually some pretty big signifiers that those accounts are fake. I'm assuming for Fernandez to have learned about this through people she actually knew personally who were actually fooled by them and the length of time that these quote-unquote relationships seemed to continue for, that it was more than that. It was a sophisticated operation.
That's how it seems to be. And of course, these are all allegations, but so this is sort of her allegation. It will be tested in court, but it hasn't been yet.
So what did she do once she learned all of this about all these fake accounts?
Yeah, so she knew that there were these fake accounts and she already knew that there were these fake images of her in like non-consensual sexual images, right? So she got involved in activism. She campaigned to change the law in Germany to better protect people from non-consensual explicit deepfakes. She also co-produced and appeared in a 2-part documentary in 2025 investigating these deepfakes. The documentary gets into the impact these images and videos have had on her, and it talks about the fact that they're widespread and they're hard to take down. At the end of the documentary, she goes into a police station to make a report, and then she comes out and she says, they're not sure what they can do, but I feel better for having made the report. That was the end of 2024 when that scene was filmed in the documentary. The following year, Fernandez announces she and her husband, Christian Ullmann, are getting a divorce, and we don't know any other details.
Hey, I'm Sam. I'm the co-founder of TDA. With one button, 82% of you who aren't subscribed to this YouTube channel can change that and help Australian media. Click subscribe. Now back to the video.
Okay, so Lucy, just to recap, we've got this German TV presenter whose face, her likeness is being used across multiple fake profiles over, I think you said, a decade.
Yeah.
She is having affairs with people that she knows, but of course she doesn't know about these. There are all these sexualized images of her being shared and shared widely.
Yeah.
She becomes an activist, an advocate, a voice for women who are subjected to similar attacks. She files a police report. The following year, she gets a divorce.
Yeah.
Then we get to March, Australia, 2026.
That's right.
A Reddit user by the name of Lucy Tassell
Yeah.
stumbles upon this story. You see a post from a German pop culture fan with a link to this big story about Fernandez in that magazine that you mentioned. So what is the new piece of information here? What did that interview unveil that we didn't previously know?
Yeah, so the major revelation of the piece and also that Instagram post that I mentioned is that Fernandez alleges it was her now ex-husband, Christian Ullmann, who was behind the fake accounts.
Wow.
Not behind the images and the deepfakes online, like the widespread ones, but in terms of running the fake accounts, that's her allegation. She alleges that on Christmas Day, 2024, she is back in Germany with Ullmann. They have lived in Spain for a couple of years. She says they're at a hotel on Christmas Day and Ullmann starts asking her about an interview that she's done about filing a police report. So remember I just said at the end of this documentary she files one, and they're both public figures, so I guess he's read this interview with his wife and he asks her about it, that she's filed a police report. And she says at that moment her husband confessed to her, quote, "I did it." Basically saying, I made the fake profiles, I used them to give people the impression they were having an online affair with you, I used an AI voice to have phone sex with people, and I sent fake videos and photos of you from the internet.
So per these allegations, this man basically catfished a string of people in his wife's network.
Yeah, as his own wife.
As his own wife. But these are allegations.
Yeah.
We have to say, Fernandez claims that her husband confessed to her, but they haven't been tested in court.
They will be tested in court, but they haven't been yet. And Ullmann did not provide comments to the German magazine.
So we don't know how he's playing.
Yeah, we don't know yet. And he hasn't made any public comment on her subsequent Instagram post where she also says basically the same thing, that it was my husband the whole time. Yeah.
There is so much to process and unpack in this story. I'm interested to hear if Fernandez revealed or gave any insight into her relationship and if she felt anything was wrong at the time, if she knew that her husband was orchestrating anything of this nature behind her back.
She had no idea, but the relationship had been physically abusive. So she outlines physical abuse from her husband to her over years in Germany and Spain, including a time when she tried to escape him by opening the windows of their Spanish apartment and screaming into the street for help. She didn't end up pressing charges after that incident. She told Der Spiegel that's because she didn't want to break up her family. The couple have a daughter together.
Okay.
And they have since got divorced, and she has pressed charges over the online kind of sexual catfishing in Spain. And that's because not only because they lived there, but also because German law is not as strict in this department as Spanish law is.
Okay, that's so interesting. I think we're seeing around the world so many different governments and countries trying to update the legislation or keep in line or keep pace with how this world has evolved so rapidly in just a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Since Fernandez went public with this story, what has the response been like? Has anything changed?
Yeah, so the German Justice Minister has said the government's going to move really fast to criminalise all deepfakes, not just sexual ones, not just non-consensual ones. So there is kind of a silver lining there that this was inspired by Fernandez going public with these allegations.
Okay. And maybe we'll see legal proceedings in both Spain and Germany.
Possibly, yeah. And Ullmann's previous collaborators have distanced themselves from him, and his most recent TV show has been pulled from German streaming services.
Before we wrap up, Lucy, I'm curious to hear what Australian legislation looks like in relation to this kind of a story. Like if this happened here, would there be similar legal consequences?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's entirely possible that this could happen here. I mean, everyone has access to particular AI tools that are on the internet. At the federal level, it is illegal to share sexually explicit deepfakes without consent. That's been the case since last year. Several states are also taking steps. So here in New South Wales, where we're recording this, it's illegal to distribute sexually explicit deepfakes without consent, and fake audio comes under that law as well as some other protections. So I would say there's pretty strict protections in Australia, but there's probably more that could be done in that space.
I think the distribution point is really interesting because in this case, Fernandez's now ex-husband claims that he didn't create the material, but even by distributing it, that's a whole other conversation with separate ramifications. Lucy, a fascinating, disturbing story. I'm really interested to see how the world reacts to this one, if we'll see a similar movement like we saw the groundswell of support for Gisèle Pelicot. Regardless, though, a very important conversation, and thank you for taking us through it.
Thanks, Emma.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. That's all we've got for you this morning, but we will be back a little later on with your evening news headlines. Until then, have a good day.